Hello everyone! In this video, I'm gonna give you a few ideas on how to perform better in your CAE speaking test. You must have seen the list of useful speaking phrases if you watched my previous video, and today we're gonna look at some grammar structures and expressions you can use to make your answer sound more advanced. I'm sure you are familiar with all of them, but you might not remember to actually use them. So, here is a bunch of things that will help you make your speech more vivid and dynamic. As, not as, which are used for comparison and contrast. So, that, such, that, for emphasis. Just remember that so is used with adverbs and adjectives, whereas such is followed by a noun. Both and, not only but also, either or, neither nor, or either or, neither nor, whichever you prefer. All of these can be used instead of the boring and. Not only but also is often used with inversion. Hardly when, no sooner than. These can also be used with inversion. For example, hardly had I started learning English when I fell in love with this language. I'd rather or I'd prefer to talk about preferences. Just remember that I'd rather is followed by a bare infinitive, I'd rather do, whereas I'd prefer should be followed by a to infinitive or an ing form. I'd prefer to do or doing. The more, as in the more I travel, the more I learn. Obviously, it can be used with other comparative forms like the more the better, the sooner the better, etc. Used to, for talking about past habits, repeated actions, and states. I wish and if only, for expressing your wishes and regrets. I wish I could, I wish I were, if only I knew, etc. Conditionals, namely the second and the third conditional, which are used to talk about unreal, hypothetical situations. Modal verbs, should have, could have, might as well, among other things. And of course, phrasal verbs, the more the better. Now, let's look at some questions that are frequently asked in part 1 and see how we can earn some extra points answering them. Just remember that this part of the test is sort of a warm-up. Its main purpose is to get the conversation going, so there is no need for long-winded speeches here. 15-20 seconds would be more than enough for your answer. Where do you come from? Well, you're obviously supposed to say more than just the name of your native town. So to expand your answer, you can give a brief description of the town, say why you enjoy living there, and so on. For example, I'm from a small town called Greenville, which is an hour's drive away from here. I would say it's a nice place to live if you're looking for some peace and quiet, but personally, I would prefer living in the hustle and bustle of a big city. First of all, I used some nice vocabulary here, such as peace and quiet, hustle and bustle, to compare town life to city life. Then I used I'd say, which is a nice filler to use at the beginning of a sentence, and it gives you a couple of extra seconds to think about what you're gonna say. And I also used I'd prefer, just to avoid like. Moreover, I transformed two simple sentences into a composite one by using which. Simple sentences like I'm from a small town, it's an hour's drive away, don't count for much. So I strongly recommend using conjunctions like even though, while, so that, and stuff like that, just to make your answer longer and more elaborate. Next question. How long have you been learning English? One way to answer would be to say, I have been learning English for 15 years. However, it's probably not a good idea to repeat the words that you heard in the question itself. So I suggest another structure, for example, present perfect plus since plus past simple. It's been about 15 years since I started learning English. It used to be my favorite subject at school, which is why I decided to pursue my studies at university to become an English teacher. So instead of it was my favorite subject, I said it used to be, just to vary it up. Then I used a linking device, which is why, and I also used pursue instead of continue, just to show my knowledge of advanced vocabulary. What hobbies do you have? Many people's mistake would be to say, I like tennis and I like music and I really like painting too. So that's boring. Instead, you can say something like, well, I'm interested in a lot of things. Not only am I fond of tennis, which I enjoy both watching and playing, but I'm also keen on music and painting. I just wish I had more time to devote to those pastimes. Again, we got rid of like by using synonyms like interested in, fond of, keen on. We also used a nice inversion with not only but also, and another similar structure, both and. Instead of saying, unfortunately, I don't have time, which is basically a regret, we expressed the very same thought by using I wish. I wish I had more time. And we also replaced hobbies with pastimes. What kind of things do you do with your friends? Well, here you can jump right into giving the list of specific activities, but you can actually give some extra information if you can think of a good expression. For example, I've been snowed under with work lately, so I hardly ever get to hang out with my friends. When we do have a chance to get together, we either go to the cinema, if there is a good film on, or chat in a coffee shop. So we showed that we are familiar with some informal expressions like snowed under with work, which means extremely busy, as well as get to, which means have a chance, and some phrasal verbs like hang out and get together instead of the boring meet. And I also had an opportunity to use the emphatic do when we do have a chance, as well as the either or structure to name two things that I do with my friends. Which place in the world would you most like to visit? Even though the question requires a specific name, you don't necessarily have to answer straight away. You can say, I'm such an avid traveler that it's unbearably hard for me to single out one place. But if I were to choose, I'd probably go for Paris. After all, it's considered to be one of the most beautiful and romantic cities in the world. So I gave a more complex answer by pointing out how much I love traveling. And this allowed me to use the second conditional, if I were to, I would, some emphasis like such that, as well as some good phrasal verbs, which are all synonyms for choose, single out, go for, opt for. There is some passive here too, consider to be. There are similar structures like known to be, supposed to be, believed to be, etc. And unbearably is an example of an intensifying adverb, like ridiculously cheap or bitterly disappointed. It's always a good idea to use those adverbs. Would you say you have a healthy lifestyle? Well, if the question is too difficult to answer right away, use some fillers. Just don't keep silent. Say, it's a tough one. I haven't thought about it. Or let me think. Another example, I'm not sure. I neither smoke nor drink, so that's a plus. However, I'm not that good at keeping to a balanced diet. I can't help eating junk food every now and then. And I probably don't work out as much as I should. I made a contrast between my strong and weak points, using however as a linking word. Also, instead of saying I don't smoke and I don't drink, I said neither nor, which sounds much better. There is some good vocabulary here, like keep to a diet, junk food, work out, as well as a fun expression, I can't help, which means I can't stop myself from doing it. I can't do anything about it. And lastly, I made a comparison here, as much as I should. You can also say as much as I used to, and so on. Why is learning English useful or important to you? Again, try not to be boring and say, I need it for my job, or thanks to English I can speak with my foreign friends. That's too easy. One option would be to say, English is the language of international communication, so the better I know it, the more opportunities I'll have in life. If it weren't for my knowledge of English, I wouldn't have been able to get a prestigious job. As you can see, there isn't any impressive vocabulary here, but I did use some good grammar, like the better the more, as well as a mixed conditional with a modal verb. I wouldn't have been able to. So I'm sure it'll be acknowledged by the examiner. Well, that's it for today. I want you to know that these examples of mine are not perfect. I'm just trying to show the various options you can avail of to make your answer more eloquent. You'll hardly be able to use all of the things that I've been talking about here, but hopefully some of them will stick with you and come in handy at the actual exam. Bye!